Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hi. Hi. I guess we can go ahead and get started. So, thank you very much for coming. I'm Megan Oftedale. I am Executive Director of OEQA, and I'm just really excited about all of the interest we have in the NBCT program. We have 352 applicants as of today. So I'm really, really excited for all of the interest. And I'm also very excited that we are able to partner with Dr. Fong at Stanford to offer some incredible mentorship. So this session is for you. We're going to go over the our services and programs that we're able to support you in, go over NBCT, its value, the requirements of NBCT, and also the mentorship offered through Stanford, and then give you all a chance for some Q&A. I think Rusty, he might explain it more. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rusty, but there's going to be a comment section so you can drop in questions there. We're keeping mainly people on mute so that we can avoid some background noise. But if you have any questions as you think of them, drop them in, and then Rusty will consolidate them and prioritize them and make sure we get all those answered for you. The session will also be recorded. So if you know anybody who's interested and they missed it, we will be sending that out afterwards. So Rusty, Dr. Fawn, did I have anything before I introduce you, Dr. Fawn, and hand it over? Okay, so Dr. Fawn, I'm going to hand it over to her. She is an NBCT expert. She runs a center at Stanford that provides NBCT support, and she's just been really an amazing partner. She's also going to be leading the mentorship partnership we have, and so really excited to introduce her. She's an incredibly accomplished and passionate person with regards to NBCT, so very excited to have her on board. And I will hand it over to Dr. Fong.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Um, Before we get going too far, Rusty, are you able to share screen? If not, I can.
Yes, ma'am.
Just okay, great. If you would go ahead and put up those slides. And as he's doing that, again, I just want to thank you all for being here. I imagine it's the end of a long teaching day for you, and you've had to make arrangements maybe for childcare or your other professional and personal responsibilities. So just thank you for being here and for learning about this process. I'm really excited about this emerging partnership. And my name's Alyssa Fong. My name has those letters NBCT next to it, which yours will too, hopefully one day. That stands for National Board Certified Teacher. And I'm joining you as director of the National Board Resource Center at Stanford University. So we're starting a partnership in collaboration with OEQA. And today is kind of the launch or the kickoff of that. So again, just thank you for being here. The next slide tells us a little bit about the agenda for today. We're going to start, and I'll do an overview of the National Board process, including what are some of the logistics, what do you have to do, but then also what are some of the incentives and like, why would you do this? And then we'll talk about the OEQA scholarship and how they'll support you in the process. Also how my group, the National Board Resource Center, will support you, and we'll end with some Q&A. So again, if you have questions, I think folks are muted for now, but you could put them in the chat or just hold till the end, and we'll make sure we have time to answer them. If not during this call, then certainly over email moving forward. All right, so let's start with an overview of the National Board process. You may or may not have heard too much about this. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standards actually goes back to the late 80s, where a bunch of educators and university professors and parents and community members were realizing, the way we define good teaching in one district could be totally different from the district next door, or even one state to the next, or even one school to the next, really. And so the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards is set out to define what they call accomplished teaching, which is kind of like good teaching. Like, what does it mean to be an accomplished teacher or a good teacher, no matter where you are in the country and no matter what content you teach or how old your students are? And so they came up with this process that's called National Board Certification. So Rusty, if you would you go ahead and jump a couple, the next slide. It's just an overview, and we're going to talk now about one of the key foundational frameworks for this National Board process is called the 5 core propositions. And so again, when these folks were trying to define what would be good teaching, they came up with the top 5 things. You can write these down if you want to. You don't have to. These things show up all over the place with National Board work. So again, you don't have to write them down. But as we go through them, try to imagine like the things that you already do that show up on this list. So if you go ahead and advance, Rusty, the first one should pop up. The first core proposition, or the first like thing that all good teachers would do according to this National Board definition, is teachers are committed to their students and their learning. And what that means is it's not just you get to know students' names, but also you get to know their community, you get to know their parents, you find out about your students' needs and their interests related to your content, but also just as they are young people in the world. And you're also committed to their learning, right? Teaching requires commitment from us. And so part of what accomplished teaching is, or this definition of good teaching, is that you show your commitment to the work. And to be honest, just by being here today and being part of the process, you're already doing that. I know there are things every one of you does to get to know your students and learn about their interests and really show how you are committed to this process. The second core proposition is that teachers know the subjects they teach and also how to teach those subjects to students. I often think of like maybe a physicist or somebody who probably like really brilliant and good at physics, but they might not know how to teach physics to young people. And that's what a teacher does, right? A teacher not only knows the content, but they know what's developmentally appropriate for 8-year-olds versus 18-year-olds. These teachers also know how to sequence learning so that if a student's trying to learn physics, like where do you begin? That's what a teacher does and what a teacher knows that, in my opinion, is different from, again, like a physicist or someone who works in the field. The third of these core propositions is that teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. Um, when you hear the word monitoring, you might think about classroom management or just making the classroom function, and certainly that's part of this. But beyond that, this is things like how during the lesson, teachers are constantly assessing how is this going, right? I have my learning goal in mind. Are the kids reaching that learning goal? Are they making progress? And how do I know? That's what managing and monitoring student learning means. Or maybe at the end of class, at the end of the day, you kind of pause and say, gee, this really isn't going quite the way I thought. Maybe I should do some pivots. That's what this third core proposition is about. The fourth one is that teachers think systematically about their practice and they learn from experience. So this is the kind of things teachers do where we look at whole class assessment data, maybe test scores, or we do surveys from our community and we think systematically about what's working and what's not. And we also seek out professional learning. So, for example, maybe in your school, you're looking at literacy and you're saying, gee, let's look at some data about literacy. Let's look at our different subpopulations. If we're not meeting our literacy targets, what should we go learn? How should we go seek out professional learning ourselves so that we can improve our systems? That's that thinking systematically about practice. It could also be on an individual level. Maybe it's just you personally are looking at your exit tickets or your class set of work and you're thinking about how you might want to make adjustments for next year, for example. And then the fifth of the five core propositions is my personal favorite. The fifth core proposition is that teachers are members of learning communities. We don't just work in isolation, we work collectively. We learn from each other. If it's not folks in your building, sometimes maybe you're on the internet learning from folks virtually around the country or even around the world. We learn with others. And I think that's, for me, really cool. I don't know that other professions like, I don't know, maybe lawyers, I don't know that lawyers would say that being a part of a learning community is one of the top 5 things they do. So anyway, again, these are called the 5 core propositions. And if you do this national board certification, which we hope you will, what you're doing is showing how you do these things. I'm sure everyone in this call does these things, right? We all do these things. The process of national board certification is writing about it on paper. It's about, sometimes people say, making your thinking transparent, like all those decisions that you do every day, all the little pivots you make, all the decisions you make in class, all the ways you interact with one student differently from another. That's how National Board is all about. And so you write about those different things that you do. Cool. Let's go ahead on to the next slide, if you would, Rusty. Thank you. So those 5 things were things that every teacher does everywhere, all of your ages of students. Additionally, the National Board said, hey, we need to ask teachers what are the specific things for their content area and for their age of students. So, for example, if you're a culinary arts teacher, National Board gathered all kinds of culinary arts teachers from around the country, as well as professionals from the culinary arts world and students and parents. And they said, okay, what would a great culinary arts teacher do? In addition to those 5 core propositions, they create standards for each certificate area. The word standards in education is kind of tricky, of course, because there's lots of standards that we use for what students do. These standards are actually standards for us. These are standards for teachers. So Rusty, if you would hit the next slide, there are 25 certificate areas broken down by different age groups. And there's standards or more information, more definition of what an accomplished teacher does for each of these certificate areas. So when you choose to do the national board process, one of your first decisions is trying to decide which one of these certificate areas am I? Because then you'll learn about how national board defines accomplished teaching for that content area. Um, so I'll explain a couple of them more in detail. If you're someone who works with special education, national boards calls that exceptional needs specialist. So you'll see that. If you're an elementary school teacher, most elementary school teachers would choose to certify as a generalist. A generalist means you teach all the subject areas, math, English, reading, writing, civics, science. So some folks, though, if you're an elementary teacher, you actually might choose to specialize or certify in literacy, maybe. Maybe you're a literacy specialist, which is kind of cool. Elementary folks, you also might teach or might choose to certify in English as a new language. So again, if you choose to do this process, your first job is to choose your certificate area. For some folks, there won't be too much of an option. I was a high school math teacher, so for me, I just did the math for the ages that fit for me, but other people do have a choice. One thing I'll say also on here for world languages, the only world languages offered right now are Spanish and French. So unfortunately, if you teach other world languages like, I don't know, German or Latin or something, unfortunately, National Board doesn't have a pathway for those folks. If you're someone who teaches maybe drama or dance, there could be some choice in there. Some folks do career and technical education. Anyway, I can help people if you're not sure, if you don't see yourself. But one last thing I'll say on this slide is there's lots of little letters, those EMC, EAYA, whatever. Those just refer to the age of students. So you can kind of ignore them for now and just look at the ages. EMC stands for early and middle childhood, whereas EAYA stands for early adolescent, young adult. Yeah, so again, if you choose to do this process, your first decision is what's your certificate area? And you'll choose from one of these ones here on the slide. If folks have questions about that, it could be something that we would want to follow up with individually or maybe at the end of the call. Okay. So when you choose to do certification, you don't have to read any extra books or take a class or anything. Rather, the certification is just pulling student work from your day-to-day practice and writing about it, or capturing videos from what you already do. That's why it says it's performance-based and embedded in your practice. These are things you already do. You don't have to teach a particular new lesson. You don't have to read a new book or anything. It's really just taking the work that you already do day to day and then writing about some of your instructional decision making. I should also say this whole process is created by teachers and assessed by teachers, which I think is really cool. I don't know about you all, but when I was a teacher, again, I taught high school math, and most of the times when I was evaluated by folks who didn't have a math background or maybe were from a different age range, and they were wonderful. Like, I don't mean to speak poorly of them, but when I was teaching, I just really wondered, like, I think I'm doing okay. Like, am I a strong teacher? How do I know? I wish I could get feedback from other math teachers, and that's what this process does for you. So I hope that speaks to you. The other thing I think is really neat about this, again, is that it's national. So it's not just about how Oklahoma defines teaching or good teaching, or even how your principal or your grade level team talks about good teaching. It's totally based on this definition that National Board offers, which is those 5 core propositions and your certificate area standards. So the process of certifying is demonstrating how you do those things. Okay, now we're going to talk about how do you do this? What are the different, what do I have to do? Sounds good. Sign me up. Okay, what do you have to do? Okay. So when you do National Board Certification, there are 4 components that you have to submit. Technically, you can do them in any order, even though they have numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can do them in any order. Most people take about 2 years. You could do it all in 1 year. Some folks take 3 years, but you have up to 3 years to submit all four of these components. So I'll go through them a little bit in detail. Before I go into them, this is an important thing. So if you're kind of distracted or whatever, like lend me your ears. There are four components. National Board says each of them takes about 50 hours of work. So it's quite a bit of work. Um, it's not just, I'll tell you more about that later. But so to start with, so component one is where you show your content knowledge and you actually take a sit down test for that. You choose a date. They're only offered in the spring, and you'll go to a Pearson testing center that's near you. So they have them all over the country, but it's like an official, I don't know, test giver, and you have a computer-based test that you take, and part of it's multiple choice, and part of it is constructed response. It's about 3 or 4 hours. Um, and I just want to say that many of us haven't taken tests in a long time, certainly not in like a fancy testing environment. Um, so that's just something to be aware of is that you do have to take a test for this and we'll help you, right? I'm going to talk later about the supports we have for you. Um, but yeah, that's just something to know. Oops, sorry. Just a quick question in the chat. Um, the second component is where you showcase how you differentiate instruction. Well, actually, I should say components 2, 3, and 4 are each papers. And so they're papers that you submit in May of an academic year. And along with the paper, you submit classroom artifacts. So component 2, you're showcasing how you differentiate your instruction. More specifically, you will choose a student or a couple students. It's different for different content areas. And you pull some student work from them from across the unit and you write about everything you know about that student, their interests, their needs, their families, and then also how you made learning most connected to that person as possible. You did everything you could to differentiate for them, whether it mean to offer extra supports or different types of engaging with the work or extensions, like all the different things you do to differentiate. So again, you submit student work with that along with a paper. The papers are about 12 to 15 pages. Component 3 is another paper. For component 3, you're showcasing essentially what it's like to be a student in the classroom. So you actually submit classroom videos. You submit 2 classroom videos, and for each video, you submit your learning materials like the worksheets or whatever students are doing, and then you write papers about what you did in the video and why. I often think about it's kind of like the same thinking as if you had a student teacher. If you had a student teacher, you might say, hey, student teacher, we're going to do circle time for this part. Then we'll do a turn and talk, and then we'll do buddy workstations. And then so you not only say what you did, but you say why. Like, why was circle time the best decision? And why did you do buddy talk? And why is that important for this group of students? So it's a lot of what did you do, but more importantly, what was your reasoning? And I often think of articulating it or describing it to a student teacher. Why you do what you do. Component 4 is where you write about and collect evidence about how you're an effective and reflective practitioner. So you do things like write about all the different ways you collect knowledge of students and knowledge of your community and how that impacts your lesson planning. You write about your whole class assessment data and how you seek to learn based on student needs that come up. And again, you write a paper for that one. So I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. Component 1 is a test. Components 2, 3, and 4 are each papers that you write. They're about 12 to 15 pages with student work or videos, artifacts. Each of them is about 50 hours of work. And it's about 50 hours because there's a lot of, first of all, thinking about what are you going to submit, like which student are you going to feature or what video, understanding the instructions. And then when you actually choose your video or your student work, a lot of writing about it and revising, a lot of sharing ideas with other people so that you learn and grow through the process. I mentioned also, Rusty, if you go ahead and hit advance, a couple pop-ups will come. You technically have up to 3 years to submit all 4 components, and you can do them in any order. And then you get the scores back on those. If for some reason you don't certify, right? If your scores aren't high enough after submitting all 4 of them, you can do retakes, and the retakes can take up to 5 years. So for some folks will be done maybe like 1 year, like super fast, right? Other folks, most people, it takes about 2 years to submit, maybe another year of retakes. Some people, it could take as many as 5 years to certify if you're doing some retakes in there. Our suggestion, and we'll get more into this as you decide to do this process, our suggestion is that in the first year, you do components 1 and 2, and then in your second year, you do components 3 and 4, because again, each of these are about 50 hours. Some people, it might take more, some people might take less. You want to really think about yourself and your personal and professional situations, right? Maybe if you're a new parent, this might not be the best time for you just because it's challenging, of course, to be a new parent. Or maybe if you have other caretaking responsibilities, like your elderly folks in your community, or if you're a coach, or if you are a grade level team leader, like you really want to think about, do you have capacity to take on this process? Because it really begins as soon as you start. Like it's a lot of work that's spread out across the whole year, and you submit your papers and you take that test in May. So it follows the academic year. We're going to go on a little bit. If there's questions, please hang on to them or put them in the chat, and we'll make sure we come back to them at the end. And if we don't get to them today, you could always email. We're going to talk now about, why would you do this? Like, that sounds like a lot of work. 50 hours for 4 components. Like, what are you thinking? There's a lot of benefits. So we're going to talk about that next. We're actually going to watch a video. This video comes from National Board. And when Rusty hits play, can someone give some thumbs up if you hear the audio okay? Just so that we know.
I want to take myself to another level. I have this thing in my room where I tell the kids, take it to the wall. So we'll go over whatever lesson, and they can tell me whether I made the lesson relevant to them. When I write my lesson plan or when I grade papers, I like to give my students descriptive feedback, but I also give myself descriptive feedback. I ask my students to evaluate me. Every day, I'm always asking myself, what is it that I did yesterday that I can do better today? I check myself before I come in the classroom. I really appreciate the National Board certification process because it kept me from burning out. My purpose here on earth is to connect with someone so we can exchange ideas and learn from each other. I grow from it, so in return, I want you to get something out of it. What I want to do now is pull you forward. Now we're going to look at our reflection. National Board certification process is a journey that you take within yourself to identify all the key components that it takes to make you a great teacher. And I guarantee you, I promise you, once the process starts, you won't be able to stop. It's going to make you a better person. That's going to make you a better teacher. That's going to make you feel proud of what you do. You know you've met the highest standards. You know that you've done everything you possibly can to put yourself in a position and say, here I am, I'm ready to change as a teacher to go to the next level.
Hey, thank you. I can share for myself some of the learning that I did. I learned that I really wasn't great at connecting with families. Part of National Board is you're asked to really show and provide evidence how you commit, how you collaborate with folks outside of your classroom, and that was just not something I was great at. So that's something I learned a lot personally. Other folks say, oh, gee, like I really learned how to differentiate. Like I really learned how to get to know my students and their interests and change the curriculum, in appropriate ways to best serve my young people. So those are the kinds of things some teachers have told me about. On the next slide, the research shows that teachers who do this process become stronger teachers. They receive just higher marks on their professional evaluations. More importantly, I think teachers who do this feel recommitted to the profession. If you're somebody who's burned out, this could be exactly what you need. There's actually research National Board has done where they find that people who certify have better morale and retention. and also increase community involvement. So you can see in this quote on the right, uh, this particular person said that they found their voice in education and they found confidence. And so again, if you're someone who's feeling stagnant, like I've been doing this for a while, I think I'm doing all right, I don't know, I'm a little bored, like this could absolutely be just what you need. Even if you don't certify, the process of going for it is awesome professional learning. And I promise you'll improve your practice for your students. Um, Also, the other thing that can happen, next slide, please, is you can create opportunities for yourself. Certified teachers are often sought out for leadership positions, to be grade level leaders, instructional coaches. Many move on to administration. Another thing that's interesting, I think, is that if you ever need to change states, like if for some reason your family moves to Colorado, National Board can help that state reciprocity with your teaching license. So if you know that for some reason, I hope this isn't the case, we want you to stay in your schools, but if for some reason you know you need to change states, National Board can really help you with some of that paperwork and logistics. I can say also, I went to an interview one time. I changed states, and the interviewer said, "Oh my gosh, you're National Board certified? Say no more. I will hire you right now." It's like, oh, okay. So I mean, that's the kind of credence it has for administrators. There's also financial incentives, so this might be important to perk up your ears. On the next slide, some districts pay additional annual stipends, so you'll want to check out what's going on in your district, check your salary schedule. If you look at the Oklahoma State minimum salary schedule, you can see how National Board certification helps you advance in the columns. I'll try to put that in the chat here so you can just kind of see how the National Board process might move you over into one of the columns. And then also, if you participate in our support program, which I hope you will, you get continuing education units, and that can also help you advance on the salary. So there's pretty great financial incentives. We'll talk more about the costs and the finance stuff pretty soon, in a couple slides. All right, I'm going to pass this back to Ms. Oftedal to do this part about supports through the OEQA.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Fong, for this amazing overview. I'm hoping you all are getting excited about this. It's a great opportunity. So Rusty, could you go ahead and advance the slide for me? All right. So OEQA offers a scholarship through the Education Leadership Oklahoma program. The link to apply is on our website. We also sent out bulletins that, since you're here, I know you got. So, please go ahead and apply through that link. What we pay is $1,300 towards the certification fee that's paid directly to National Board. So I think that you pay a little bit for each component, but I think Dr. Fong, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $475 for each component. And then so we pay a quarter of $1,300 for that. So that is $325 per component. So you would pay $150 per component, but we also give you a stipend to cover materials and things related to your certification. So really with that, it really, I don't think, Dr. Fawn, that there's many books or materials anymore that you need, especially going through the Stanford program and everything being online and available to you. So I think that between the two things, you get $1,800 in total. And I guess if it's $475 in total, so that's $1,900. So it's actually, paying a lot of your way. Of course, you can use the $500 stipend on books and other materials, but with the Stanford program, it does pay for everything, or does have everything available online. Just correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Fong. There is also, I believe, a small registration fee as well. Dr. Fong, do you know how much that is?
Yeah, it's $75 a year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are some few other expenses you can look up. But anyway, we do provide that $1,300 and that $500 stipend. So the $500 stipend is paid to you in cash. We will issue a check after you become join the program and are officially accepted. So it says, after the scholarship, how much do you typically pay out of pocket? So let's assume you got it done in 2 years. and you didn't have any materials because you fully utilized the free Stanford program that we also pay for. It's a program that Dr. Fong does is $500 a year, but we pay for that too. So there's also, we don't pay you directly for that, but we pay Dr. Fong. So in total, your benefits would be the 1,300 plus the 500 plus say 3 years of mentorship and support if you took 3 years. So a lot of benefits. But yeah, so the question here is if what you pay out of pocket. So I think, I don't know. I mean, if we had, yeah, I guess if we did the 1,300 and then you got the $500 and it's 1,900 plus you pay three, say you spent 2 years, it would be 150 of those 75 times two. So probably like 250, maybe. What do you think, Dr. Fong?
Yeah, that sounds right. I was gonna say 800, but I didn't account for like the additional 500. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it
So,
depends again on how long you take, and
mhm.
if you have to do retakes costs more money. But I would say $1,000 or less. I think $1,000 would be a high amount. I'd say 300 would be a low amount.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it really depends. That's a good point about the retakes and stuff. So if you're able to get it done and pass all four tests and you do it in 2 years, it should only cost about 250. But if you take, more years and have to do retakes, then it might be like closer to, somewhere in the middle or 1,000. So
Yeah.
um, good question. And can you advance to the next slide, Rusty? No, that's okay. That's it for me. So yeah, okay, I signed up for the scholarship. Would I sign up for next year? So we will accept you into the program. Once you're accepted, you're in the program. And so we will accept 100 new people each year into the program, but people who are already in the program continue through it. So because it takes multiple years, what we do is every year around January, maybe December, something around those times, you'll be getting an email from me or someone at the team asking you what components you're doing, and then we will pay National Board for those components, and this will just continue for 3 years. We can only pay right now legally. I'm working on maybe some potential legislative changes to extend that, but right now the law says that for 3 years we can pay you directly, meaning we will pay directly the fee to National Board. You don't have to pay anything out of pocket besides your portion, but we also give you that $500 at the beginning, so that can help supplement. So sorry, I feel like I'm not making too much sense. Sorry. So for the sorry, just getting a lot of questions here. Okay, so anyway, but if you already signed up, you're already in the program, and so we can continue to pay directly for your fees for 3 years after that. Say you do three components and you have one more to do, but it's the fourth year, you can go ahead and take that, and upon completing the NBCT or any Chick legend is completing or passing it, we can reimburse you. But yeah, so there is that opportunity too. If you do go past the 3 years and you still need to pay for components, you can do that out of pocket and seek reimbursement. But for 3 years, once you're accepted in the program, we pay for your components for all four components for your first take of it, and we also give you that $500 stipend, and we provide mentorship through Stanford for you. More questions. Whoa, there's so many of them. Okay. Does it make a difference or anything if we have a master's degree or not? Okay, Dr. Fong already replied to that. Okay, I think those are both Dr. Fong questions. So I will let it hand it back over to you, Dr. Fong.
Yeah, well, one thing that is coming up a little in the chat is around master's degrees and maybe which one's better or whatever. In my opinion, a master's degree, usually you have to do a lot of research, you write a thesis, it's pretty theoretical. And usually after you graduate, they kind of send you on your way. Whereas National Board, you don't have to read any research, right? You honestly just are writing about things you're already doing every day. So there's no, I would say it's not very theory based. It's way more based on what you do as a teacher compared to a master's degree. The other thing is once you certify, you become part of this like National Board community, and you're invited to go to conferences, and you're like part of this network where you have like meetups and stuff. So a master's degree, in my experience at least, they kind of say, good job, see you later. Whereas with National Board, you're like kind of part of like this network, which helps, I think, professionally.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dr. Fong. I didn't highlight that in some of our supports too. So our benefits, I guess I should say, but we have an annual summit in June, and this previously had been currently certified national board teachers, but we also wanted to make it a part for the candidates also to come to all or part of that. We're still kind of finalizing and working on that. But we'd like to have an opportunity for even candidates to come and also do an in-person optional, totally optional if it benefits you and you want to come, but a in-person support. Previously, we did more in-person support, but we are moving to the online program as we have more candidates and want to reach people across the state and also give people flexibility and more options. So this will be our like during the school year, it'll be online, the support through Dr. Fong at Stanford, but then in June we will have some, 1 day workshop in person, and that also is on the same day as our national summit, where there's a wonderful speaker and we have a lunch and you can meet other NBCT. So it's a really lovely event. Is a scholarships program ever going to expire or go away? Legislature can make those decisions every year. This program has been around for about 20 years. We don't anticipate that it's planning to go away. And of course, if you entered in it, we would still honor those obligations, assuming funding is available for you to, finish. But yeah, we don't. When do you find out if you get the scholarship? We are closing applications on the 30th, and then we will start evaluating them. And we plan to have the selected candidates list ready by October 9th for our commission to approve. They need to approve our selected candidates. And then we plan to announce maybe as soon as October 10th, just give our office a few days to send out that email, but we'll try on October 10th, but sometimes it's spring break, things are going on. It could be a few days after that, but mid-October, I would say no later than October 15th.
We're going to go through a couple more slides, and then please continue to put questions in there, and we'll do our best to answer them. Okay, so in order to be eligible, first thing is you have to have a bachelor's degree. The second one's crossed out. You might have heard, this is an old thing. It used to be that to do national board certification, you had to have taught for at least 3 years. That's no longer the case. I just wanted to put it there in case you've heard people say that, but National Board actually took that requirement out. So you do have to have a bachelor's degree. You do have to have a valid state teaching license. And if you're a world language teacher, there's an additional test you have to take, which is the ACTFL tests. Other than that, you're eligible. So I hope that sounds good to you. If you would go ahead to next slide, please. I mentioned earlier, you want to think about your timeline if you want to do this. Again, there's 4 components. We recommend you do 2 this year and 2 next year. Some folks want to go hard and they're going to say, I'm going to do all 4 this year. If that's the case, you should start like this weekend. You can absolutely do that. It's very ambitious. And technically, you can change your mind around January. You can decide, I thought I was going to do all 4, but now I'm only going to do these 1 or 2. But there is a hard date, usually January or February, by which you have to actually pay and commit. And then the other thing just regarding timeline is that if retakes are necessary, the whole process could take as many as 5 years. So that's something else to keep in mind if this is something you're curious about. On the next slide, it talks a little bit about the supports offered to you. And I just want to pause and say, this is totally offered to you by OEQA. This is a very unique and special offering to you. There's very few states, let alone districts or schools, who support their teachers in the way that OEQA is supporting you all. So just, when you can, say thank you. You are going to be invited to join our Stanford online cohorts totally free of charge to you. They're Tuesday evenings from 5 to 6 p.m. That's Pacific time. So, and I think most folks here are Central time. So that's 7 to 8 Central time on Tuesdays. And it's totally virtual. So and if you can't come, I should say we record them and we email them out the next day, because we know many of you can't come at 7 o'clock. Maybe, again, you're a coach or you have orchestra concerts or whatever. But when you do come, what it looks like is you meet people from around the country, and they're people who teach the same content you do. So Like if you're a physical education teacher at the elementary school, you'll meet other PE teachers from around the country and talk about like, what does it mean to teach physical education? And what does it mean to be a, like, let's look at videos of each other and how do you all differentiate? You know, so you meet other teachers from around the country. You also will have a mentor from your certificate area, like a PE teacher who's done this process, and they'll answer questions for you. They'll give you feedback. Um, at the end of the year, you can get continuing education units for your participation in the support program. So again, this is totally funded by OEQA, no cost to you. It's a very big deal. So just again, thank you to them for investing in you in this way. There are some costs. We mentioned this a little bit. So again, the costs are a little confusing. For most folks, they would pay $475 per component, but OEQA is paying $325. So you only pay $150 per component. And there's 4 of them. So that's something to know. And then you do need to pay $75 to register each year. And then optional, you could pay for those continuing education credits, the CEUs. So we mentioned earlier, the price to you would probably be between $250 and maybe $1,000, depending on if you're doing retakes or if you want to buy the CEUs. But for most candidates, this price is closer to $3,000 or $4,000. So OEQA is really helping you out here. So I would say take advantage of this program if you can, because it's really generous of them. And then if you're thinking like, this sounds kind of cool, maybe not, I'm not totally sure, totally understand. Oops, I'm going to put in the chat where you can find your certificate area standards. And again, when you do this national board process, you're showing how you do these standards. Someone was saying earlier, could an elementary teacher certify in literature? You have to look at the ages of students because the ages of students might make that possible or not possible. But more importantly, when you read the standards, you want to see like, does this speak to me, right? Am I inspired by this? Again, if you're an elementary school teacher, maybe you're considering a couple different certificate areas. Maybe you read a couple different sets of standards just to see like, what are they asking me to show? And do I really do this? Do I do this one or do I do that one better? Amber has a question. If you certify and let it lapse, do you have to go through the entire process again? Unfortunately, yes, you do. In order to maintain your certification, you have to, every 5 years, do a little mini submission. That's called maintenance of certification. If you don't do that, then yes, you'd have to start over again. You'll move into questions.
So we had a couple of questions about feasibility of the scholarship itself. One earlier on was that if they did it, I signed up for the scholarship. Would I have to sign up again next year?
I think I covered that question, that once you're in the program, you're in the program and we support you. So if you don't have to reapply to get a scholarship because it's a multi-year process. So we accept 100 per year, but in effect, theoretically at any time, there's hundreds of people in the program. So because there are continuing candidates as well. So what happens is we will take 100 new and then we will send out a survey at the end of the year, just asking if you're a continuing candidate, do you still need mentorship or have you completed all your components, just kind of get your pulse. And then, those candidates will go on as continuing candidates and we can have you in the program and support you paying the components for up to 3 years. But after that, you would need to pay your own way and then seek your reimbursement if you weren't finished after 3 years. So.
That is actually all of the outstanding questions at this moment.
Keep them coming, y'all. We're here for you. We know you got questions. Even if you're not sure, probably someone else is wondering it. So don't be shy.
I'm just gonna unmute because it's easier than trying to type it out, if that's okay. So I teach for EPIC, so non-traditional classroom. I taught in a traditional classroom for 12 years and then switched here. So currently I see kids all the way from pre-K to 12th grade. But most of our meetings are on a one-to-one basis. So I get to meet with kids for 2 hours a week on a one-to-one basis with each individual kid. Is that going to be an issue when I'm going into these components? I know when I got I have two masters and a reading specialist degree, and some of them revolved around like classroom management and things like that. Because I don't see more than 1 to 2 kids at a time, is that going to cause any issues before me before I get started?
Just to clarify, are these students special education, or this is just the way
Gen
your
Ed.
program works? Gen Ed. Um, that's a good question. That might be something to ask National Board. The reason why I'm pausing is because of the Component 3 video. The
Yeah.
Component 3 video, you're supposed to show different classroom, like different ways you interact with students. So if you ever have a small group, you could submit a small group and a one-on-one and you'd be 100% set. But I don't think you could submit two individual one-on-one videos.
Okay, I could probably arrange like a small group because
Yeah,
sometimes, like, not often, because that's
yeah,
what I love about doing the way I'm doing is I get to meet with them individually. But I could probably arrange a small group for that type
yeah.
of thing but it would still be like 5 or less kids.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fine. That's
okay.
fine. And then you get to write about the reason, like you write about your context, you write about why getting these 5 kiddos together was helpful to them. So
Okay.
you write about it and justify why that was the right move.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure before I got too far into it, that because I know classroom management is a huge, huge thing and I have past experience, but if I'm needing to document it, I wanted to make sure my current position would work well with that. Thank you.
Sure, that's a cool job.
I just got a few questions. I dropped the answers in there, but some people were asking about when you sign up for the program. So I'm assuming that's really the mentorship program. So, but I'll kind of back up on the whole sequence. So the application that I'm sure many of you have already submitted, thank you, is due September 30th. If you haven't submitted, please do. We're excited, and we do have a lot of applicants. So make sure you take the time to write a nice essay to give to show really why you're very committed to this. That will help your chances. Then we will have the application review committee, which consists of 3 national board teachers, read those essays, grade them, and ultimately recommend 100 teachers to the CEQA, the Commission of OEQA, who will then approve those scholarships. Then we will, as soon as we can, but no later than the 15th of October, send out an email to everybody accepted, and then also the continuing candidates as well, and let them know here is, you'll have to, there's a little form you'll need to sign saying that you understand the terms and everything of the program that you'll sign. And once we get your signed confirmation, you can go ahead and then sign up for the Sanford program. And Dr. Fawn, that program will be, it will be going on. You can start that as soon as October, and the program is amazing. It will have, of course, the live sessions, but also we'll record them and be on demand. And Dr. Fong and I too are going to work on a date because we're going to have a special Oklahoma kickoff and everything. So also in October. So very exciting, really great support. And then I guess then the next timeline you'll have is late December, early January. I'll need to just know what components you're submitting for the year because by February I need to pay for them with NBCTS, so with the national board. So I will then get that, and you will just move along. And in the June will be our summit that you'll be invited to, and more opportunities for mentorship and engagement with the Oklahoma cohort.
I just wanted to clarify. I applied through the Google or the link when we first got the State Department email. And what and you mentioned an essay. Do I need to go through the National Board website to do
No,
an
it's
official application or?
no, it's on our form. So if you miss that, just go ahead and resubmit. We'll notice you have two applications, and maybe you could put a note somewhere, that it's a duplicate and because you didn't submit the essay or something.
Okay.
Yeah. What's your name? Is Crystal?
Yes, Crystal
Okay,
McKnight.
cool. If you have
Yes.
my email too, you can always email me or Rusty directly. I could always even go if you resubmit, I can go and delete your old application
Okay.
too, so
That
that
would be
if
great.
you
Can
yeah,
you
no
put your
problem.
email in the chat?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I just
Rusty, will you
finished a
also drop
master's.
yours? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just finished a master's degree in reading and have moved out of the regular classroom to doing just all reading interventions. So I was really wanting to do this program. It's really want to make
Mm.
sure I got everything turned in for it. So I just used the same link that I applied before and just add the essay.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I
Okay.
can remove the duplicate.
Okay. Thank you so much. I
No
appreciate all of
problem.
this.
Ritasha, do you have a question? I see your hands up.
I did, pretty much along the lines of what Crystal had. I'm looking at the Google form. Is the essay question 12 and 13 on this Google form, which says, why is becoming a national board certified teacher important to you? Or how will this scholarship help you continue providing quality education?
Yeah,
Because,
it's the last two, the ones that aren't the
okay,
multiple choice. Yeah,
okay. And so that is where I'm going to have to resubmit as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you too.
no problem. Yeah, it's correct. It's a two question, 12 and 13. Exactly.
Now, just as the man behind the curtain, just a couple of points of clarification. After this, we're going to take the recording of this video and post it up for, like Dr. Oftedal stated earlier. If there was anyone who is interested in applying or wants to have more information, it'll be on the OEQA website with a link. It'll be prominent. So you'll be able to see this and you can direct them to it so they too can have the information that was provided today and can get excited about this program because we absolutely are. Love what we're doing here.
So one other thing, thank you, Rusty. One other thing I might be helpful information to share is that we have historically always done recruitment in the fall, which is why we had the application open in the fall to make sure anybody who wants to can start their process. However, we are going to move the application cycle to the spring starting next year, but like this school year still. So this year will be an odd year where we actually will have two application periods. So we will have this one in the fall, and then also we will have one that will open around March or so, and then we will award those scholarships in May, and you would be able to start your process that July. That is because we got some feedback that some teachers wanted to be able to work over the summer and their NBCT and start a little earlier. So our funding is for the fiscal year, which resets on July 1st. And so we wanted to, kind of just pre-pick everybody and be able to give you that funding and that opportunity starting on July 1st. So you can go ahead and get started. If you want to, you can wait till the school year, but that way you would get a little bit more time before December, January came around and you need to submit your components, et cetera. It just gives people more flexibility. So that is unique. So if you feel like you really want to do it, but maybe this year is a particularly busy year, you also could apply in the spring cohort, and that would start in July. So this cohort will start in October. The next one will start in July. Someone asked how long the responses should be. The responses is really flexibility, however much space you need, incorporating some of the NBCTS National Board principles that Dr. Fong, outlined, showing understanding of those is a good way to have a really great chance of getting the scholarship. But just, really we're looking for understanding that you are committed to the program, committed to teaching, and see this as a benefit to improve student outcomes and your own teaching. Well, I think that might be it. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Thank you for all the information.
Oh, of course. We're excited that so many people are so excited and applying. So I'm just really very impressed by all of the current NBCTs and all of the candidates and prospective candidates. These are just the teachers who are the most committed, who are always going above and beyond, and who it's amazing and beautiful to see the community practice that is the NBCT program. So
Yes.
very, very happy you're here. All right. Well, I guess I will wrap it up. If you have any other questions, you can reach out to Rusty or myself or our info email, and we look forward to reading your application soon.
Have a good day.
Rusty, someone asked about having this video and email. We can go ahead and email the link to everybody who registered for this. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Bye.